you start with the understanding that you already do belong, that we all belong, that we belong on an atomic level, that we belong in relationship and connection with one another, that we belong in connection through our ancestors. We belong.
You're back at the Faculty Factory podcast. I'm Kim Skorupski here at Hopkins, and I'm looking at Heather Broad. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Kim.
You're going to want to scoot on back to episode number 177 with Heather, where we talked about interpersonal communication and dynamics. Now, Heather and I go way back. She used to be at the Ohio State University, where she's all about talent, faculty mentoring, advancement, and engagement. Made a real impact at OSU, and how I knew her through the AAMC, the Association of American Medical Colleges group on faculty affairs. And Heather is now doing coaching. You can get her at heatherbroad, BROD.com. Again, Heather at heatherbroad.com. And because Heather and I had such a great conversation last time, we talked, you're really going to want to check out that episode, about our life intersecting with work, inferences, assumptions, just how we kind of engage with each other. We started talking about belonging. And I think this is a really important topic for all of us coming out of what's been going on in our lives the past couple of years. So here we are, Heather. Welcome again. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. And why don't you just kind of let's roll. Tell everybody where you are, what's going on, and why belonging is so important.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me back. It is a real pleasure to be able to do this again. So I had so much fun the first time around. And so, Kim, I'm really just hoping we can have just kind of a conversation about this, because when I think about belonging, I don't have a philosophy about it or an orientation toward it. It's just something that is appealing to me. It's something that is important to me. And honestly, I'm trying to make sense of it, both through my clients and then in this kind of organizational way as well. So I guess the way maybe I'm thinking about it is on the personal side of things. A lot of the people I coach, and I primarily coach women, but I coach all kinds of people, and I primarily coach people in academic medicine, but elsewhere too. I would say a lot of them don't fit a mold. They're not like a clinician educator, clean cut. It's really easy to say oh, this is what this person does. It's people who are often one of the few women in their subspecialties, perhaps, or they're the only physician scientist in their department, perhaps, or, a lot of other ways that kind of, I guess, kind of keep them outside the norm. And it can be a struggle to find your path in that direction. And then on the other side of the coin, is the organizational side. And we talk a lot about DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And sometimes now we're also talking about belonging and what that means. And so, when we look at who we are as people and how we navigate our organizations, our workplaces, and then how workplaces are trying to help people, integrate, navigate, feel included, I'm just really interested in that space and what it looks like and how we approach that. And then how we as either coaches or faculty affairs professionals or faculty development professionals, what's our role there? So that's kind of my preface to this conversation.
Yeah, and I'm with you too. As I've been looking forward to our talk today, Heather, I've been thinking a lot about that too, and thinking about, where, and my background is sociology, gerontology, epidemiology. So I'm sure there are psychologists and psychiatrists and other behavioral scientists maybe listening to this right now going, and they could oh, wow, why don't you talk about this, talk about that? I'm thinking of the standardized tool. There's an engagement survey. Many of our institutions do these assessments where we try to tap into the sense of feeling like you're part of something. And we know that it's so important to our satisfaction, to our well-being, and people feeling like they're contributing and being valued. And I'll just kind of start with what you first said. this feeling, this professional belonging. And you said feeling like we're outside of the norm. And a lot of people we coach are outside the norm. And I too have that all the time. I can't remember ever in the 9+ years here at Hopkins and 9 or 10 back at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, ever. I don't remember ever talking to a faculty member who sat down with me and said, I am the prototype, absolute vanilla norm. I'm the one who they've written all the policies for, all the standards, the guidelines. Yep, I fit all that perfectly. And then the surprise is every person who sits in front of me says, well, I'm not like everybody else. I'm a little bit different. I'm a little unique. And I feel like saying at some point, no kidding. Everybody is unique. There's not one person I've ever met who could say, yeah, blah, 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 boring, vanilla. I'm kind of, it's every person who kind of, and sometimes they say it almost apologetically. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really fit that. So I'm kind of different. And I always try to reassure everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And that's why you in the promotion process or as we become leaders, you amplify that difference and uniqueness. And then it's up to the institution to then recognize and find ways to see that uniqueness and make you feel like, yeah, we love that you're not the norm. We don't like the norm. Nothing we do is in the norm.
Right. And I mean, I think you bring up such an interesting point there that so often this does come up in the promotion process, because I think that's the first time that maybe individuals recognize, they don't exactly meet the criteria. And I do think some departments, institutions, they're better than others about that flexibility to say, like, oh, this is how you fit. This is what we're going to emphasize or amplify, or, this is what makes you so great to have in our institution. And then I feel like there's the other side where it's like, well, you need to check all these boxes. And how frustrating and demoralizing that can be for people who tend to be, very innovative or, kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, and how that can even disincentivize some things that could be really beneficial to the institution. Like one of the conversations I've been having a lot lately was with people who want to do things with industry, but they feel like they can't forge those great great connections with industry, because that then takes them away from the NIH. And, what does that look like? And how is that stigmatized? And then part of it too, I think is, it's likely possible. And it's likely going to be recognized. It's just, how do you even get in front of the right people who can then really assure you of that and validate that and help you do that in the way that's going to be most beneficial for both the individual and the institution.
Yeah. And you say NIH, Heather, and you're reminding me that over the decades, I was taught and we learned how to, when you write the grant applications, to, fall in place and be very conservative with your aims, because a lot of new investigators will go nutso with, oh my gosh, I'm going to do these 7 things. And because they're so ambitious and have this vision. And so what do? We put that wet blanket on them and say, no, dial it back. Just do 2 things. No, however many years you're proposing to do, it's the years -1. And that's how many aims you should have. Like all this formulaic, no step, just do it 1 step at a time. So what do? We kind of chokehold. We learn to fall in place and kind of standardize ourselves, especially when we're early in our careers, to check those boxes, as you're saying, that we kind of feel like to fit in, to meet the criteria, to feel like you belong and you're part of the club. You have to act like, act accordingly and be accordingly. Yeah. And then there's always that, right, that fine line of, okay, now when can I bust out of here? I'm running with the pack. I'm part of the team,
Mhm.
but I can turn on the afterburners. When can I do that? When can I do that?
Mhm.
So that is kind of when you're ready to like slingshot ahead, or maybe just go completely off course, off road. How do we nurture that?
Mhm.
So I want to, like you're saying, the two sides of the coin. We can't go too rogue too quickly, and yeah, going with industry and completely dispensing with all criteria and forget NIH. That is so far out of the box thinking that a lot of reviewers and committees go, what's going off of people's shoulders? We can't even deal with this. So how do we find that balance of encouraging personal creativity, but not too much creativity? Where's the balance?
Yeah, what is the balance? And I guess, that to me speaks to those futuristic leaders in organizations who have the ability to identify what the diversity and complexity of experience contributes. And I think sometimes we get mired in process instead of, how do we each really bring our best selves and contribution to the fore? And how do leaders nurture that?
The word tradition just popped in my head, because last night here at Hopkins, we had a wonderful celebration of whenever you're promoted to professor, there's a big celebration. So they scaled it back. It was a lovely evening at the Four Seasons here in Baltimore, and wonderful remarks of, the accomplishments of those of us who were promoted recently. And I was sitting at a table with someone who talked about tradition and how at Hopkins, we always had one promotion track. And then we recently did a clinical excellence promotion track a couple of years ago. But on the topic of, we were actually talking at the table on the topic of making changes and going into the future. And he said, well, I was always told that Hopkins, there's a saying that's 100 years of tradition unencumbered by innovation. So the idea, and we all laughed, but there is something to be said, again, two sides of the coin, the yin yang. Tradition is wonderful, fitting in and doing things safely. There are reasons why we have norms and rules and boundaries and expectations and guidelines and policies. And then when you realize that things are changing and people bring that different lens and framework, and if we're so hemmed in by the tradition and the rules that we don't allow but why? You can think back to, being a little kid when little children say, well, why do we do that? Why can't I? Oh, what was I watching or listening? Something on YouTube or somebody else's it was a podcast. I think it was Hidden Brain. And the woman was saying, she and her husband during COVID, their child was saying, can I make the cereal? Oh, he brought little food coloring to the cereal table and wanted to put food coloring in his Rice Krispies, pretend. And she's like, no, we don't do that. Well, the dad said, we don't do that. And he looked at his wife and said, do we? And she's like, I don't know. We can do that. So every morning, then he turned his milk a different color with a couple drops of food coloring and said, why can't we? And so now you're making me think of the 100 years of tradition unencumbered by progress or unencumbered by innovation. Where do we welcome that person who is why, and safely allow them to explore that creativity and have a safe place where they can feel free to express themselves while not going so far off plane that it can hurt them or the institution, because we also know that you can have such chaos where everyone's being creative and innovative and there's no what's the word? There's no like structure. There's no complete lack of structure, normlessness, lawlessness. That's unsettling. So that's what I'm thinking.
Well, yeah. And you're also speaking to what are the characteristics of the individual that can both modulate themselves and not die a slow death from that modulation and maintain that edge of curiosity, of innovation, persevere, have tenacity, to move forward within the constraints of the environment, kind of seeing the bigger picture and yet not being maybe dissuaded or demoralized by it, but able to iterate and see the forward progress, and not completely lose sight of either themselves and what they really value and want to bring to the table, or getting frustrated with the organization and just giving up altogether.
Yeah, and that's where that coaching is so valuable, and having peers and peer mentoring and groups, your tribe, your inner circle to say, am I completely off the page here? Am I gone bonkers? Am I gone from the bend? And some, your people say, well, yeah, maybe you're a little bit ahead of your time, or you tend to get too, pie in the sky. We need to rein it a little bit, but no, don't lose that. You've got great ideas. It's just not now.
Yeah.
Or rein in your enthusiasm because you tend to be, 100 yards down the field and everybody else is still trying to catch up. Like, what's going on? Where's she going? So you need to give people a minute. So that is like what I'm thinking from perspectives of, from a leadership perspective. Yes, we want the diversity in its full breadth of age and ability and industry and field and specialty and personality. We want that. And you want to make sure we nurture that safely and productively and channel that energy. And because, we know that when we coach people, sometimes you can see all that gifting and that talent. And it is a mismatch in that particular division, department, institution where they're not in sync and the values are not aligned, maybe not permanently, but just at that moment or on that topic. So yeah, when you're from the leadership position, to me, it's complex, obviously multi-layered, recognizing where can we, help someone coming up through the ranks figure out, is this time to move? Do you pull up anchor and move? Do you just kind of like let up the anchor a little bit and just kind of coast and hang out there a while? How do you know when to jump, and if maybe jumping is not appropriate, but
right,
all the motion and movement from the leader. Now I'll kind of let's stick here and then let's kind of pivot to the person themselves. But for belonging, to me, that's the challenge, is trying to figure out, well, wait a minute, after becoming clear to me that we've tried a bunch of different things and maybe this is not the right institution for you, not the right grant application for you, not the right leadership position for you. How about this and how about that? What are you seeing?
Yeah, no, definitely that. But that ability to even find the right leader or sponsor to make the case to. And I think it's the institutional focus, that you are, as the individual, regardless of to whom you're speaking, that you're able to contextualize what it is that you want to do and how it has the benefit to the organization as a whole. And I think that sometimes is a missing skill that, again, and maybe it's just, as the individual, you see it so clearly, but you don't know how to make the case, or build the business case for it. Or you just simply don't even know who's the right person who's going to be interested or inspired by this. So you're kind of barking up the wrong tree. So that ability to both, contextualize what it is you're doing and look at scope and substance and contribution, and then as well find the sponsor who has the, similar like mindset, has the institutional clout or authority, and going about doing that in a way where you're not inadvertently stepping on toes. I think it's all very subtle and nuanced to be able to bring all of that to the fore really successfully.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it was really, you said so many really important things in there. I like that segment a lot. It's that emotional intelligence to be able to recognize and mentor and coach that to somebody else. it is challenging
Mm-hmm.
because when you see someone, this brilliant artist on stage or performer or athlete, and you see that, oh my gosh, they're so primed and so ready, and they want to run, they want to go. And when you kind of can see, oh my gosh, yeah, they're toes to be stepped on, and you're just about to pounce on them and stomp on them, and you don't even realize it because you're frustrated. Maybe that you've been told no, but it's just the wrong time, wrong twist. We got to kind of tailor this a bit. So all that kind of finessing to say, okay, now go for it. It's exciting as from the coach, from the leader, from the mentor's perspective when you see it. And then it's also so rewarding when you see someone who gets it, when you see the person go, oh, you mean Heather doesn't make the decisions. It's Heather's colleague. Oh, okay, now I understand. Or, oh, now I can understand why she's thinking that way. I hadn't really thought about the way she takes in information or makes decisions, or her reason, the change in the budgeting scenario, that appreciation for, as you say, contextualizing that when you help someone to see that all the other elements, and then things start to click and fall into place. It's really, it feels so good to know that's that it's happening. And to me, that's I'm so impatient that when I learn and have learned to be patient and help others be patient, that's to me has been very rewarding.
Yeah. And I think, it's almost like, what you're saying, having that organizational awareness of, what does the org chart actually look like? And having that kind of influence awareness and all of those things. I mean, those are skills that are usually learned over time. I don't know many residents, fellows, med students who are, kind of taught in this. I think some people maybe more intuitively gravitate toward it than others. And I think there's a potential downside for those who maybe don't come to that naturally. And I've seen this in some of my clients, they're really ultimately at their wit's end because they've done everything within their capacity and they haven't gotten any green lights. And so they're just fed up. And though there's all these other paths and opportunities, they just haven't become aware of yet, haven't become exposed to yet. And then it becomes a fine line working with, these individuals of are you really, is jumping ship the best option for you in this moment? Or, are you willing and open to trying some other ways of being that you haven't tried before?
And Heather, that's perfect. That's exactly the tack I wanted to kind of then shift, is from our perspective. So now I'm the mentee, the coachee, the early career faculty member, the executive leader who is frustrated. So my obligation, what do I own in this situation? And I think, you can hit some really important points here. So from our perspectives, that level of frustration, that sense of I cannot believe that I have tried 18 different things and none of it works, no green lights, I'm being told no, I didn't get that position, my promotion packet is not good enough, another grant gets rejected, on and on and on and on. All those rejections or frustrating points. Part of that awareness is recognizing that we're not privy to everything that's going on. So what I try to do is, you don't know what you don't know thing, where I'll hear myself even thinking or saying these things and hearing others say, well, but I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I did A, B, C, D, E. And then the assumptions that they're making about what that means. And then realizing, well, maybe that's not that. Is there another way of thinking about that? Is it possible that you don't know well, no, I know him. I know what's going on there. But really, do you? It's kind of like when you see some, the bad guys out there who nothing ever happens to them. How come there are no consequences? Well, you don't really know what's going on. And, if someone's not going to post on a blog necessarily what punishments and sanctions are being, you don't really know all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
You're not in all the meetings of the boss. You don't know so that is what we should own in terms of our own sense of belonging is what? Patience, humility, and recognizing, okay, maybe I don't know everything.
Perspective taking, I think what you're largely alluding to there is perspective taking, really trying to see things. And it's beyond empathy. Empathy is also, I think, a great skill here, but, being able to see things from the perspective of another person.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard. And that can be really hard, especially when you're so convicted that this is going to be good. I know it. I feel it. I've done the research. I'm an expert here. I got this. Again, I keep thinking of the horse at the starting line and then the athletes who are just ready, like, let me go. And people, no.
Yeah. It's the bringing other people along with it. And, this reminds me of a conversation I had with a client just yesterday. And she was saying something, well, this is the way it's done. Like, this is the way other places do it. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This is how it's done. Like, kind of period, end of story. And I had to reflect back that, if I were on the receiving end, not as her coach, but as, her colleague, what I was getting from that is just a finality. And so I might go along to get along and say, oh, okay, sure. But then I would probably go out of my way to sabotage it because I haven't been bought in. I haven't been brought along with it to really appreciate, why and how this might affect me and what I might be feeling about it, regardless of whether or not it's the right way. So I think that's, a piece of it too, is how do we use our own ability to influence others? How do we bring people with us into our wonderful ideas, have that broader perspective?
That's I really, really like that. So if I want to, let's play devil's advocate. So if I want to feel like a sense of belonging, that I am valued, that I appreciated, that my skills are desired, that I am a part of a team, that I matter, that I have meaning, how can I do that? And I'm thinking about someone I know who recently said, a younger woman in college, and I said, well, it's Friday night, go out, go get your friends and go out and stop studying. Why are you doing physics on a Friday night? And she said, I don't have any friends. And I said, what do you mean you don't have any friends? I don't understand that concept. And just go out in the world and be a friend to somebody. That's the best way to get friends is to be a friend. Be. And she couldn't understand me, and I couldn't understand her. Then it was the realization of, all right, hang on, Kim. I could go talk to a tree. Literally, do talk to trees. Different episode of a podcast maybe, but I could talk to anybody, and I do, and it's easy for me. But for her, as an introvert and first time on campus after COVID, it's not as obvious as just, hey, how you doing? Will you be my friend? Check this box. So that, but that to me, so back to the whole thing of, if I want to feel and experience and be a part of something, how do we do that? What part of that should I own if I'm feeling, Heather, I don't feel like I belong. I'm not valued. Nobody likes me. I'm not engaged. I'm dissatisfied. I have no joy. I don't feel like I'm part of this. What might you coach that person to say, coach me to say if I'm?
Yeah, well, I love that you just asked me that question. And it also leads me to this book that I've been reading and I really want to plug, which is Sebene Selassie's You Belong.
You Belong, Sebene Selassie, Selassie. I never heard of it.
Yeah, this is one of the best books I have read in I don't know how long. So her perspective is that you start with the understanding that you already do belong, that we all belong, that we belong on an atomic level, that we belong in relationship and connection with one another, that we belong in connection through our ancestors. We belong, and we emphasize differences. sometimes over, similarities or over celebrating what makes us different. And that our lack of self-worth or self-love can often get in the way of our sense of belonging and our ability to connect with those around us. So I feel like always, starting with one's self-awareness. And so as a, coach, if you were my coachee, I would ask you a lot of questions about what you believed about yourself, what your values are, what you're seeing around you, all those things that are influencing you, pointing you in the direction of, what makes you connected rather than what makes you different. And I think if we can start from there, we're in a better position than if we are just, pointing out all of the differences that
I love that reminder of let's start where we on something we agree. What can we agree? So recently at church, there was a political conversation, and I had to keep reminding myself, what do we all agree? Can we all agree? We all agree our faith. So let's, number one, what do we all agree the same, faith construct here, right? Right. Okay. Okay. So with that, understanding that at least kind of always centered us. That's right. We're here. We may have differences there, but we have this foundation, similarity, connection. We are connected to each other. And I love that reminder that you already belong. You exist. We hired you. You're in the lab. You're in this department. You are a faculty member. We did hire you to be the leader. You already belong. So starting from that premise doesn't assure you that it's going to be perfect, but I like that kind of change of, and it's sometimes a couple of women I'm coaching who are saying, well, now I got this really big job and I feel like I really have to prove myself and show my value. And I want to make sure they realize they made a good choice, that I was the right candidate. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but they chose you because you already are the right person. You don't have to prove anything. No, you did it. You're because you are. So this attitude of I have to do something else or other to be part of something kind of flips that upside down and changes the perspective. Let's start from the fact that, no, you already do belong. You belong.
Yeah. You belong. I belong. We all belong. Our humanness makes us belong. And though, I don't want to be naive about it either. I mean, there are organizational forces that conspire, to signal people out, to bully, to, so this isn't like being blind to realities of situations. And though, like the student you were talking about who doesn't have any friends, to have a friend be a friend. I mean, it's a similar thing, right? And also be a friend to yourself. Like that's the starting point. Be a friend to yourself. Then you can be a friend to others, and then people will be friends to you. So, if you're experiencing not belonging, if you find yourself focusing on difference, a good place to start is simply, with one's own awareness, looking inside, looking at, where can I connect on a human level and build from there? Because, mirror neurons, all of that stuff, right? I mean, we are really connected to one another. And similarly, if I was having this conversation with you right now, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, Kim and I aren't alike at all, and she doesn't like me, and like it would be a very different tone to this conversation. So
it'd be like a confirmation bias too.
Yeah, it would.
Start to look for differences. Yes. If I have it in my head that Heather doesn't like me and she doesn't approve of me and I don't belong here with her, she has a bias against me for whatever reason. Now I'm looking for facts to confirm. See, she just did it again. I knew it. Yep. This is saying, let's remind myself, no, we're all about patient care. Patient care is number one. Or we all agree in the science. It's all about the science. We all agree that we are loyal to this institution or to this community, always reminding. And then from the leader's perspective, because like you, I don't want to be naive, have blinders on, like, oh, Pollyanna-ish, that
Right.
Everything will be hunky-dory. It's all your fault if you're not feeling belonging.
Right.
It's our obligation, I think, as leaders, that if we see someone who is being, bullied or always treated as other, that's where we have to step in and own part of that culture. What am I doing or not doing? Standing up for or not standing up for? It is saying that this is all right to treat someone or have someone feel or believe that they are not valued. So that's also our obligation, all of our obligations. No matter where you are in the pecking order, we're all leaders just by being part of any institution.
Exactly.
We all have to have those open eyes of who is not feeling like they belong and why.
Yeah. And how can I, do my best to foster that? How do I demonstrate value for others? How do I demonstrate inclusion? How do I bring others along with me? I mean, we can all do that at any stage. In hierarchical institutions, leaders have a lot of impact in doing that. I would say an outsized impact sometimes. But yeah, all of us can absolutely, like you just said, look within ourselves first and bring that forward.
And like Abraham Lincoln's reminded me of that book, Team of Rivals. Wow, what a greater example than invite the people you disagree with to be on your team. Talk about modeling behavior that shows she's bringing other who they are like oil and vinegar. But recognizing that there's value to be had and everyone belongs regardless of their perspectives, that you exist. And so bring it. Heather, this has been a great conversation. And if you've enjoyed the conversation, you want to check out Heather at heatherbroad.com. That's HEATHER at heatherbroad, BROD.com. Well, Heather, it's great. We're going to have you back again. I love talking with you. And everybody out there listening, come back next time to the Faculty Factory podcast. Bye.
Thanks, Kim. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more. Get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.